Hello viewers, yes, this is your Ranjana ma'am and you are watching, yes, it's mine as well as your channel, and you have been waiting for this for months, and I was also waiting. Why? Because I wanted to know whether this time y'all will be having it in your ISC syllabus or not, because last year it was not there. It had been eliminated from the ISC syllabus. Which one? You all know, to build a fire. It's in the thumbnail. To build a fire. So that is why I was waiting this year also to see. Otherwise it's love's labor lost. It's no use. But now that it is in the syllabus, because you all are having only those chapters which are in the class 12 syllabus, only those are coming. So this time they have included birches as well as to build a fire, which were not in the last ISC syllabus. Well, they didn't have any exams, but still they did not need to prepare these two chapters, one poem and the other prose. To build a fire, a very lengthy one. Honestly telling, I really didn't like it. But still it's in the syllabus, so I have to teach. By the way, you know what's coming. If you have not subscribed to my channel up till now, please do. I've crossed 60k, and with your support, and I need some more support to help me to cross the 100k mark. And yes, for that please subscribe and share. And what are we waiting for? Let's proceed with to build a fire. So the story, to build a fire, before we start it, I think you should be enlightened as to the setting of this story. So where does this take place? What is the background? Where does it happen? So it is said that actually it is an adventure story which in the end becomes a misadventure. It results in a tragedy, a failed adventure, we would rather say. And what is the setting? It is in the Yukon territory. Where is this Yukon territory? It is near the border of modern day Alaska. It is near the border of the modern day Alaska, Yukon. And this place is noted for its very harsh temperature, much below the freezing point. 50 degree, often that is very natural. 50 degree below zero, my goodness. Can you imagine? In 0 degree only, and for us, the moment the temperature goes under 10 only, we start shivering. For us in Kolkata. Kolkata is a very hot place, and we are not accustomed to the cold. Anyway, people who are accustomed to the cold also, for them minus 50 is too much. It's hardly bearable, and below minus 50. So very harsh winter, and at that time this adventure had been taken, which resulted in a failure, which resulted in a misadventure or a tragedy. So, and at that time the snowstorms are also quite common. Blizzards we call them, the snowstorms. So people who are experienced in moving through these type of places in the winter season, they know that it is not right, it is not really logical, it is not really prudent to travel alone. When the temperature is so low, when it is below 50 degrees below freezing point. So this man who undertakes this adventure, he is a Chikakyo. That means he is a newcomer. He does not have any experience. He is a newcomer in this territory. He is a newcomer So people had warned him, but no, he ignores all the warnings. And what is his purpose? He wants to go to the camp. He is now alone. Somehow he wants to go to the camp to join his friends. He calls them boys, so he wants to join his friends who have already reached the camp, and he wants to go there. So though he has been warned by the old timers, see, this is not the time for you to walk alone, you should not walk alone in this type of harsh weather, take at least someone with you, but he does not pay heed to their warning and undertakes this adventure all to himself with just his dog. And then what happens? The tragedy strikes, and he knows that he is eventually going to die, and how he faces his death. So in the beginning, how his reaction is, and then later how he comes to term with it, how he accepts death. So this is what the story is about, a very lengthy story. So initially his overconfidence stops him from listening to the old timers, the people who are accustomed to these type of bad weather, they are accustomed to the trail. But overconfidence stops him from paying heed to them. But later he realizes they were correct and he was wrong. And then how he feels, he starts running somehow to reach the camp, and then he realizes this is futile, I won't be able to manage it. And then slowly he accepts his fate and he waits for his death. So this is more or less the synopsis or the setting and summary, you can say the gist of the story, and it takes such a long time to finish. So To Build a Fire by Jack London. Day had broken cold and grey, exceedingly cold and grey, when the man turned aside from the main Yukon trail and climbed the high earth bank, where a dim and little traveled trail led eastward through the fat spruce timberland. It was a steep bank, and he paused for breath at the top, excusing the act to himself by looking at his watch. It was 9 o'clock. There was no sun, nor hint of sun, though there was not a cloud in the sky. It was a clear day, and yet there seemed an intangible pall over the face of things, a subtle gloom that made the day dark, and that was due to the absence of the sun. This fact did not worry the man. Overconfidence, na? This fact did not worry the man. He was used to the lack of sun. It had been days since he had seen the sun, and he knew that a few more days must pass before that cheerful orb due south would just peep above the skyline and dip immediately from view. So, yes, how is the day? It is cold and grey. It is a cold and grey day, very cold and grey. And this man, he turned aside from the main Yukon path. And what did he do? He climbed the high earth bank. And this place had been less travelled. Few people travelled on this trail. Trail means path. Few people travelled on this, and he changes to this path. And where did this path lead? Eastward, through the fat spruce timberland, woodland, you can say. And it was a steep bank, and walking a steep bank is very tiring, very exhausting, steep. And he paused for breath at the top. When he reaches the top of the steep bank, he pauses, he waits a little, excusing the act to himself by looking, as if he is looking at his watch, but actually he is pausing to take some breath. It had been quite a rigorous exercise for him. There was no sun. There was no sun in the sky, neither was there any cloud. Actually, the sun remains not money. It means that the sun doesn't remain visible for long periods in those places. There was no sun nor hint of sun, though there was not a cloud in the sky. So it's anomalous, isn't it? Normally here when we don't see the sun, we see the sky overcast with clouds. But it was not so. It is only that for some days the sun doesn't remain visible in some parts of the world. You can't see the bright light of the sun. So as a result, what happens? The place, it looks grey, it looks cold and grey. So there was as if it was a clear day, that means no cloud in the sky, and yet there seemed an intangible pall over the face of things, a subtle gloom that made the day dark. So the gloom or the pall which could see, the paleness, the pallor, it was as if indescribable. The paleness could not be described. Such a paleness, no bright light of the sun to lighten up the atmosphere. There was paleness all around. That paleness which could not be described. There was as if a clear gloom, and it made the day dark. And why was it? Due to the absence of the sun. But he was not worried. He didn't seem to be worried. Why? Because he was used to the lack of sun. So it's nothing new for him. He has spent many days in the absence of the sun. So it had been days since he had seen the sun, and he knew that a few more days, yes, some more days have to be waited in order to see the sun. In order for the sun to be visible, he would have to wait for some more days. A few more days must pass before that cheerful orb refers to the sun. Cheerful orb, due south, would just peep above the skyline and dip immediately from view. So yes, it would make an appearance and then again dip. So some more days needed before it finally makes its appearance, that cheerful orb or the sun. Regarding moon also there is a poem, that orbed maiden with white fire laden, whom mortals call the moon. There is one poem. And here the sun is being referred to as the cheerful orb. The man flung a look back along the way he had come. So he throws a glance at the path which he has left behind. The Yukon lay a mile wide and hidden under 3 feet of ice. So the Yukon River, it's covered 3 feet of ice, under 3 feet of ice. On top of this ice were as many feet of snow. It was all pure white, rolling in gentle undulations where the ice jams of the freeze up had formed. So there were rolling in gentle movements, undulations, gentle movements where the ice jams of the freeze up had formed, north and south. So he takes a look around, north and south, as far as his eye could see. It was unbroken white. So he glances around him. Wherever he can see, there is nothing but ice, ice, ice. It was unbroken ice, save for a dark hairline that curved and twisted from around the spruce covered island to the south. So there is a dark, with the exception, everywhere there is ice, unbroken ice, except for a place where there is a dark hairline. So it curved and twisted from around the spruce covered island. So spruce is actually a type of tree which has needle-like leaves. So around the spruce covered island to the south, and that curved and twisted away into north, where it disappeared behind another spruce covered island. So He sees one spruce covered island to the south, then it twisted away in the north and disappeared behind another spruce covered island. So he sees, these are the only things he sees, with the exception of the snow all around him. This dark hairline was the trail. Trail means the path. This is the main trail, the main path that led south 500 miles to the Chilkoot Pass, Daya and salt water. So this trail leads to these places. The main trail that led south, that means it is the main trail is leading in the southern direction 500 miles to the Chilkoot Pass. So Chilkoot Pass, what is it? It is a mountain pass which is on the boundary of Alaska. So boundary between Alaska, Colombia and Canada. So this is the Chilkoot Pass. Daya and salt water, and that led north 70 miles to Dawson, and still on to the north 1,000 miles to Nulato, and finally to St. Michael on Bering Sea, 1,000 miles and half 1,000 more. These are all the geographical facts. So you are being made aware of the geographical facts and the location at which place the man is at present. So the place where he is standing, from there which are the places that are close or far away from him. But all this, the mysterious far reaching hairline trail, the absence of the sun from the sky, the tremendous cold and the strangeness and weirdness of it all made no impression on the man. So however difficult the situation is, but it doesn't seem to affect him. It makes no impression on him. So what does that show? That he is not a far-sighted person, he is not a practical person, he lacks imagination. It was not because he was long used to it. Who can not be affected? A person who is accustomed, he will find nothing strange. But this man, he is not accustomed to this, and yet it doesn't affect him. That shows his lack of perception, that shows his lack of imagination, his lack of practical knowledge. He was a newcomer in the land, a Chikaku. Chikaku means actually a newcomer, it's a synonym. And this was his first winter. Imagine, in his first winter in such a difficult time, he is out in the open, and that too all to himself, all alone. That is something very foolish he has attempted to do. Thinking of this as an adventure, he has landed himself in a misadventure which will ultimately lead to his death. The trouble with him was that he was without imagination. He was quick and alert in the things of life. He was quite active. In the things of life he was active, but he lacked imagination. He lacked perception. But only in the things and not in the significances. So what does this signify? What does that signify? Regarding that, he was a zero. He was alert. He could do things well. But he did not have much wisdom, not practical knowledge. 50 degrees below zero meant 80 odd degrees of frost and frostbite. When there is frost and you are open to frostbite, such fact impressed him as being cold and uncomfortable, and that was all. Oh, so 50 degrees below freezing point, that means 80 degrees of frostbite or frost. Yes, that means too much of cold, uncomfortable, nothing more. He doesn't realize that he could freeze to death. This thought doesn't come to his mind. That shows how impractical he is. And yes, you can't blame him, this is his first time, but he should have made homework, he should have done his homework before he set out on this dangerous task all to himself alone. It did not lead him to meditate upon his frailty as a creature of temperature. Yes, we are a creature of temperature, and there are limits to our endurance, and after that we cannot endure anymore. Nature is harsh. Fur-bodied animals, they have more endurance than us. We human beings, we have a level of our endurance, and beyond that we cannot. But he did not have this knowledge. It did not lead him to meditate upon his frailty as a creature of temperature and upon man's frailty in general. Yeah, what are we in front of nature? We are weak. We are weak things in front of the all-powerful nature. In general, able only to live within certain narrow limits of heat and cold. Too hot also we cannot endure, too cold also we cannot endure. There is a limit to our endurance of heat and cold, and after that either we die on account of extreme heat or we die on account of extreme cold. The heat wave kills so many people every year. So for the cold, frozen to death. Remember the match girl you all did in your ICSC, the match girl, she was frozen to death. Out in the open, exposure to the cold, and she was frozen to death. So we have our human body has its limits of endurance. And from there on, it did not lead him to the conjectural field of immortality and man's place in the universe. Yes, man is not immortal, and he has a place in the universe, but that is mortal, that is not permanent, that is temporary. Our place in the universe is temporary. 50 degrees below zero stood for a bite of frost that hurt, and that must be guarded against by the use of mittens, ear flaps, warm moccasins and thick socks. My God, who will explain to him? He thinks, okay, 50 degrees below zero, so what? I can take guard. It means I will be exposed to frost. So to check myself being from frostbite, what should I do? I must use mittens. Mittens are types of gloves. You don't have all the fingers. You have one place for all the 4 fingers together and for one for the thumb. Normally in gloves, we have all the 5 fingers, places for all the 5 fingers, but in mittens, yes, it's like this and one. That means there are only 2 sections. Whereas in normal gloves, there are 5 sections where you have for places for all the 5 fingers. But in mittens, it's like this. So he feels that if I use mittens, if I use ear flaps to cover my ears, if I wear flat warm shoes, moccasins, and thick socks, then I can beat the cold. Impractical to its height. And you can't blame him. This is for the first time that he is on such a mission. I remember for the first time when we had visited that we had been to Siliguri, and from there we went to that, what place is it? Sikkim. We had gone to Sikkim. Sikkim is cold, but when we were proceeding towards Changu Lake, my goodness, and we people of Kolkata, we are used to the hot season. Initially we were quite enjoying it, but that time I remember it was January, very cold, and the more we proceeded and our hands started getting numb in spite of the gloves. And when we removed the gloves to take photographs of the snow-covered mountains on the other side, my goodness, we couldn't move. It was like a seething pain. It seemed so numb. And that time, I think the temperature, yes, it was below zero, because we could see ice everywhere. So naturally, it would be below freezing point. I think it was -7. And after that, the Indian Army forbade us to proceed anymore, because that day it was a bad weather day in the Changu Lake, so we couldn't finally reach the lake. We were stopped midway. Ours was a heavy vehicle. vehicle. We were traveling by bus. The Maruti cars and the others were allowed to go, because that day in Canggu it was -17 and we were stopped by the Indian Army at -7. So we had some entertainment there in the ice and then we returned. We could not. Our mission was a failure. We did not finally reach Canggu. There was a tea stall there selling pakoras and all that. So we had a little bit taste of it and then we returned. So that was -7 and we were freezing like anything with all those warm things we had stuffed us with. I was looking like a detective. I don't know how many clothes and warm clothes and a long coat and everything I had put on, and then the sunglasses and everything, the monkey cap also on top of it. So yes, I was looking so weird. All of us, we looked weird, and yet we could not make it. In -7 we were shivering like anything, and here it is -50 and he thinks that he can manage it with the use of mittens, ear flaps, warm moccasins and thick socks. 50 degrees below zero was to him just precisely 50 degrees below zero, nothing much. So he doesn't really understand the impact of that. What does 50 degrees below zero really mean? He doesn't understand that there should be anything more to it than that was a thought that never entered his head. 50 degrees below zero meant something more, not just 50 degrees below zero. It meant that human beings will not be able to endure that temperature. It is beyond his endurance. That thought did not enter his mind. That means he took it very casually. As he turned to go on, he spat speculatively. There was a sharp explosive crackle that startled him. He spat again and again in the air. Before it could fall to the snow, the spittle crackled. That means, just see how cold it is. When he spits, the moment the water comes out, the spit comes out from his mouth, it turns to ice. So that is that crackle sound of the ice. So he's stunned, he's shocked. What is this noise? So he spits again and again in the air. Before it could fall, before his spit could fall to the snow, it crackled. He knew that at 50 below, spittle crackled on the snow, but this, yes, once it falls to the snow, then it crackles. But here what had happened, before it fell to the ground on the snow, it crackled. Undoubtedly it was colder than 50 below. How much colder he did not know. But the temperature did not matter. He was bound for the old claim on the left fork of Henderson Creek. Henderson Creek is the place where the other members of his group have already reached, and he is going there to join them. He is going there to get united to them. So he starts his journey in the morning and he expects to reach there by 6 in the evening. He was bound for the old claim on the left fork of Henderson Creek, where the boys were already. So his teammates were already there. They had come over across the divide from the Indian Creek country, while he had come roundabout way to take a look at the possibilities of getting out logs in the spring from the islands in the Yukon. So the others, they had gone through one way and he had gone through another way. Why? Because he was not only in search of gold, that is why his boys had gone to that Henderson Creek, but he had gone in a different route. He had taken a different route because he wanted to find he wanted to see if he could find some logs. Then he would take the logs also along with him, so that he can sell it later. He thinks of his profit. So that is why he takes a roundabout path. While he had come the roundabout way to take a look at the possibilities of getting out logs in the spring from the islands in the Yukon, He would be in the camp by 6. He is optimistic. He feels, oh, by 6 I will be there. A bit after dark it was true, but the boys would be there. A fire would be going and a hot supper would be ready. So what if I reach a little after dark? My boys, my teammates would be there. There would be a fire burning. I will get a good supper there. As for lunch, he pressed his hand against the protruding bundle under his jacket. So a little bit inside his jacket he had put his lunch. That is why his jacket was protruding. It was also under his shirt, wrapped up. So it was not only just under his jacket, under his shirt, his lunch, wrapped up in a handkerchief and lying against the naked skin. It was the only way to keep the biscuits from freezing. So why did he keep it close to his skin? To stop the biscuits from freezing. So the biscuits were his lunch, and in order to stop them from freezing, he had kept them close to his skin. Then he had put on his shirt, and on top of his shirt he had put on his jacket. He smiled agreeably to himself as he thought of those biscuits, each cut open and soaked in bacon grease, and each enclosing a generous slice of fried bacon. So these biscuits, they were not just plain biscuits. Each of the biscuits had been cut open. They were soaked in bacon grease, bacon fat, and not only that, a slice of fried bacon also. Each of them had a generous slice of fried bacon. So it was quite a tasty meal, it should seem, but only thing was it was frozen and you couldn't warm it. He plunged in among the big spruce trees. The trail was faint. It was not very bright. He could not see the trail or the path that lay in front of him. It was faint. That means not many people had stopped walking on that path. There were not frequent travelers on that path. A foot of snow had fallen since the last sled had passed over. That means since the last carriage had passed, last sled has passed, it was a long time. That is why a foot of snow had settled on the path since then. And he was glad he was without a sled, traveling light. Yeah, he was without a sled, he was traveling light, he was walking. In fact, he carried nothing but the lunch wrapped in the handkerchief. That was his only luggage, the lunch. He was surprised, however, at the cold. He had not expected it to be so cold. Minus 50 degree, yes, minus 50. But is it really so cold? I had no idea. It certainly was cold, he concluded, as he rubbed his numb nose and cheekbones with his mittened hand. See, the hands are mittened. But what about the cheekbones? What about his nose? So they are open to exposure. They are exposed to the cold and they have become numb. So he is rubbing his nose, his cheekbones. He was a warm whiskered man, but the hair on his face did not protect the high cheekbones and the eager nose that thrust itself aggressively into the frosty air. Yes, so he had warm whiskers, but they did not stop his cheekbones. They did not protect his high cheekbones, neither his nose. So whiskers will be here and they won't be here, neither here. So the nose as well as the cheekbones, they were exposed to the bitter cold, and as such they were frozen. They had become numb. At the man's heels trotted a dog, a big native husky, the proper wolf dog. So a wolf dog is along with him, grey coated and without any visible or temperamental difference from its brother the wild wolf. So this is a wolf dog, but it does not have much difference from that of its cousin the wild wolf. Not much difference between the wild wolf and the wolf dog. The animal was depressed by the tremendous cold. So this animal, its instincts are much better than the instinct of this man. This man had failed to realize the depth of the cold. how cold it would be. He had failed to realize how, but this dog, its instinct tells that it is not really a bearable one. The animal was depressed by the tremendous cold. It knew that it was no time for traveling. So who is more intelligent of the two? The dog. The dog knows this is not the fit time to travel. Its instinct told it a truer tale than was told to the man by the man's judgment. The traveler's judgment did not give him the right solution. The traveler's judgment was wrong. Rather, the instinct of the dog was right. In reality, it was not merely colder than 50 below zero, it was colder than 60 below, than 70 below. It was 75 below zero. So no, he had been told minus 50. But no, it's not minus 50, it's minus 75. Can't imagine minus 75. Since the freezing point is 32 above zero, it meant that 107 degrees of frost obtained. So we think of zero as the freezing point, but here it is said that the freezing point is 32 above zero. That means 107 degrees, that means 75 and 32, that means 107 degrees of frost obtained. The dog did not know anything about thermometers. Yes, the dog does not know about these calculations, 107 or whatever. The dog doesn't know all these, but it has its instincts which is more reliable, more dependable. Possibly in its brain there was no sharp consciousness of a condition of very cold, such was in the man's brain. Yeah, in the man's brain he knew it was very cold. The dog might not have that type of thing in its brain, but the brute had its instincts. The man's brain might be a better developed one than the dog's, but the dog's instinct is much better than that of the man. He is guided by his instinct, the dog. It experienced a vague but menacing apprehension that subdued it and made it slink along at the man's heels, and that made it question eagerly every unwanted movement of the man, as if expecting him to go into camp or to seek shelter somewhere and build a fire. So this dog was quite reluctant. It was following the man at his heels, but it was quite reluctant, unwilling. And it was every time the man was making his movement, the dog was as if expecting him that he would go into some camp, try to search for some camp, try to find a shelter or to build a fire. The dog had learned fire and it wanted fire. Yeah, the dog knew what fire was, and dog also knew that the fire was the solution to escape the cold in this type of weather. It knew, its instinct told, and it wanted fire, or else to burrow under the snow and cuddle its warmth away from the air, or to dig the snow and get inside and burrow itself in the snow. Like there are many animals now which live in burrows. The rabbit lives in burrows. So the dog would prefer to burrow itself in the snow rather than face the chilly air. The chilly air which will be piercing the skin, and they are like pin pricking, they are like needles. The frozen moisture of its breathing had settled on its fur in a fine powder of frost, and especially where its jowls, muzzles and eyelashes whitened by its crystal breath. The man's red beard and moustache were likewise frosted, but more solidly. So for the dog, which are the places that were covered with frost? Which were the places? Yes, the muzzle, that means the nose portion, the jowls and the eyelashes, they were whitened by its crystalled breath. And what about the man? The man's red beard and moustache were likewise frosted, but more solidly than that of the dog, and deposit taking the form of ice and increasing with every warm moist breath he exhaled. The breath which he exhaled, the moment he exhales it, just like the spit becomes snow, the moment he exhales the wind, it as if becomes frost and settles on his beard and his moustaches. Also, the man was chewing tobacco, and the muzzle of ice held his lips so rigidly that he was unable to clear his chin when he expelled the juice. So, after chewing the tobacco, when he expelled the juice, he was unable to clear his chin. Why? Because everything was frosty. The result was that a crystal beard of the color and solidity of amber was increasing its length on his chin. That means the color of his beard becomes the color of the tobacco juice. The tobacco juice which he is trying to throw out, which he is trying to expel, that settles on his beard, and the beard, the crystal beard becomes as if like amber. Solidity of amber was increasing its length on his chin. If he fell down, it would shatter itself like glass into brittle fragments, into small breakable fragments. But he did not mind the appendage. He did not mind that extension of that tobacco juice hanging on his chin. It was the penalty all tobacco chewers paid in that country, and he had been out before in 2 cold snaps. That had not been so cold as this, he knew, but by the spirit thermometer at 60 mile, he knew they had been registered at 50 below and at 55. So he had been earlier also, not so cold, not in minus 75, but he had been there at 60 mile, and he knew that it had registered 50 below and 55 below, but not as cold as this. And that time he had experienced, being a tobacco chewer, he had experienced this juice of the tobacco when he is about to expel it, and how it settles in his beard and becomes like the glass, like a thin sheet of glass. He held on through the level stretch of woods for several miles, crossed a wild flat of niggerheads, and dropped down a bank to the frozen bed of a small stream. This was Henderson Creek, and he knew he was 10 miles from the forks. Forks means where the path or the trail divides itself into 2 ways. Either you take this one or you take the other. So 10 miles still to go. He looked at his watch. It was 10 o'clock. He was making 4 miles an hour, and he calculated that he would arrive at the forks at 12:30. So 4 miles an hour and 10 miles from the fork. So it would take him, or he would reach at 12:30, because it is 10 o'clock now. So 2.5 hours more to reach the fork. He decided to celebrate that event by eating his lunch there. Yes, once I reach the fork, I will celebrate the event. How? By eating my lunch there at 12:30. The dog dropped in again at his heels, with a tail drooping discouragement. The dog is not happy, he is discouraged, as the man swung along the creek bed. The furrow of the old sled trail was plainly visible. So someone before him had gone on a sled, so that trail was plainly visible, but a dozen inches of snow covered the marks of the last runners. So since the last runners had passed this way, after that, dozen inches of snow, dozen inches, that means 12 inches of snow, 1 foot, had covered the marks of the last runners. In a month, no man had come up or down that silent creek. So the road not taken. There is a poem by Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken. Hardly any people travel that road, and the traveler took that road. Here also, for the last 1 month, no one had traveled that road, and he takes this one. Why? Because he wants to see if he can find some logs. In a month, the man held steadily on. He was not much given to thinking. He is not a man, rational man. And just then, particularly, he had nothing to think about save that he would eat lunch at the Forks, and that at 6 o'clock he would be in camp with the boys. These are the thoughts that are in his mind. By 12:30 I will be at the Forks celebrating the event by eating my lunch, and by 6 I am sure to reach the camp. Life is so unpredictable, so strange. He doesn't know that he wouldn't make it there. He would die on his way. There was nobody to talk to, and had there been, speech would have been impossible because of the ice muzzle on his mouth. So he had no company other than that dog, and even if he had someone, it would have been impossible for him to talk. Why? Because of the ice muzzle on his mouth. So he continued monotonously to chew tobacco and to increase the length of his amber beard. So he keeps on chewing tobacco, and the juice comes out and makes his beard more amber colored. So we'll stop here. This is a very big story, so I'll do it in 2 or 3 parts. This is the first part, and after that I'll be coming up with the second part and the third part in a day or two, because even y'all must be bored. If I finish everything in one, it would be more than an hour rather. So yes, 16 sides is not a joke. So I'll do it in 3 parts. So for today, let me bid you goodbye, and at the same time again I'll remind you to subscribe to my channel, and bye for the time being. Have a nice day.